This episode of Daily Variety is presented by City National Bank. For over 70 years, City National has proudly served the entertainment industry with banking solutions tailored to the unique needs of this business. From complex negotiations to long-term financial planning, City National supports the people and businesses behind the scenes. Visit cnb.com/entertainment to learn more. Here for every stage of the journey. City National is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Welcome to Daily Variety, your daily dose of news and analysis for entertainment industry insiders. It's Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. I'm your host, Cynthia Littleton. I am co-editor-in-chief of Variety alongside Ramin Satuda. I'm in LA, he's in New York, and Variety has reporters around the world covering the business of entertainment. In today's episode, we'll hear from Andra, the actor and singer who is taking part in the Night Out for No Kid Hungry fundraiser to be held Saturday night at Rolling Greens in downtown Los Angeles. This is one of a number of ventures by this great nonprofit organization that is on a mission to end child hunger, and that is a great cause. But before we get to that, here are a few headlines just in this morning that you need to know. Bill Ackman wants to own Universal Music Group. The hedge fund giant has unveiled a takeover bid for the world's largest music company that values Universal at about $64 billion. Ackman has been a thorn in CEO Lucian Grange's side for a few years now. I suspect that some of the artists on Universal's roster will have strong thoughts about his Pershing Square taking over their life's work. More to come on this for sure. The layoff axe is about to fall at Sony Pictures Entertainment. The studio is anticipating cutting hundreds of positions across its film, TV, and corporate divisions. At present, Sony Pictures Entertainment employs about 12,000 people. The Wasserman Agency is starting to regroup after the scandal earlier this year that led to Casey Wasserman stepping down and selling his stake. The music group has been renamed The Team. Kevin Shivers has been named co-president alongside Lee Anderson. Don't miss Variety's investigative report from my colleagues Brent Lang and Rebecca Rubin on the making of the Michael Jackson biopic from Lionsgate. Michael hits the multiplexes on April 24th. Producers dealt with difficult reshoots and the really difficult question of how to handle the child molestation allegations that dogged Jackson at the end of his life. All of these stories and so much more can be found on Variety.com right now. And now it's time for conversations with industry leaders about the world of media and entertainment. Andra joins us to talk about why she's taking part in the No Kid Hungry dinner event set for April 11th in downtown Los Angeles. The event promises to serve up one-of-a-kind collaborations from culinary stars including Shirley Chung, Ludo Lefebvre, Michael Mina, Brooke Williamson, and Alexandra Hong. It's a partnership between LA's Taste of the Nation and the No Kid Hungry dinner franchise. Day will join with Warren G and DJ Supernova in performing at the after-party where the desserts will certainly be divine. Before we hear from Day, here's a sense of No Kid Hungry's basic pitch to its supporters. It focuses on something that's hard to deny: the importance of feeding children no matter where they are or where they come from. No Kid Hungry was a campaign launched in 2010 by its parent organization, the nonprofit Share Our Strength. It was designed to address the problem using school infrastructure by building on existing support and resources. Share Our Strength is active in Washington and state houses in advocating for progressive anti-hunger legislation. Jeff Bridges was a spokesman for No Kid Hungry for a long time. For a nation as wealthy as the United States, eradicating child hunger is a very worthy and seemingly achievable goal to pursue.
For our students to be successful at school, socially, emotionally, behaviorally, academically, they need food. That's the key to it all.
Children do so much better in school if they've been given a meal.
When they go home at the end of the day, you're not sure if they're going to have a dinner or not, but at least when you know they come to school, they're going to eat.
Every day at lunch, he would take one bite of his sandwich, one bite of his fruit, and put it in his bag. Even his milk, a drink in the bag. A third grader was taking all of this home so that his sisters could have food. That is just something that I will never forget.
And now, here's my conversation with the great Andra Day. Andra Day, thank you so much for joining me to talk about a great organization, No Kid Hungry.
Thank you for having me.
No Kid Hungry is very creative, and they often have big events that help bring attention to the issue of chronic hunger. And on April 11th, they are doing a Night Out for No Kid Hungry event that you are part of. So in addition to, I'm sure, a fabulous meal, what are you looking forward to?
I know that the event will be amazing. And like you said, they're very creative. I love the way they integrate multiple worlds like music and and just food and culture and how they're able to create these memorable moments. But I think what I'm looking forward to most is what these memorable moments produce, which is on the ground action. I think that making sure that kids have food and making sure that they can sustain themselves and families can sustain right now, I think is of the utmost importance. So I know the event will be beautiful, but I think everyone at the event who is aware of this organization, including the organizers, are most excited about the outcome. I'm really excited to just, I've just been a newly a fan of this organization since signing on to do this performance. I've learned a lot more about them. And I love that they organize to events like this and they make sure that children are fed, but they also, it's a national effort and a national organization. And so I like that they work in all realms of culture and of society and of government to help people understand the importance of making sure that kids have access to food.
It's also one of the organizations that has really done a lot to explain just how prevalent it is, that there are children out there in every classroom that go to bed either hungry or much worse. And I think, as you said, the awareness of these kinds of things, in addition to the fundraising, but just the awareness that there is such an organization. How did you get recruited to be part of this event?
They reached out to my management and then they spoke to me about it. I've always been this way, but particularly now it's even more imperative for me that, any charity that reaches out, I always want to look up the organization. I want to look up how impactful they've been, how effective they've been. And, the people funding this, the organizers, once they looked into the organization and vetted it for me, it was really a no-brainer because I was like, they're really putting their money and putting their manpower behind what it is they believe. So it was, like I said, pretty standard. There's moments sometimes like this where you go to do a gig and you're like, great, this is amazing, I'm grateful. And then you get to know the organization more deeply and you're like, great, now how do we expand and continue this relationship? And No Kid Hungry is one of those organizations.
I'm sure you get a request a day, if not more, to do things like that. What is your litmus test for when you say yes?
Right now, I'm like, my litmus test, I was like, I'm pretty sure it's like 10 pages long now. But I think one of the huge things for me is impact. Are they actually doing the work and do they actually care about people? Because, it's so funny. I read something earlier and while I'm appreciative, somebody had made a comment that said, I think we can all agree, that kids should have food. And I was like, we would be wrong to assume that. Unfortunately, we are dealing with organizations or groups of people. I don't really like to parse words, so don't have the conversation with any cultural or historical context or any nuance to understand that feeding your family or feeding kids is not as simple as just like, well, parents should just do that. You know what I mean? So for me, No Kid Hungry actually knows how to have this conversation with nuance and is actually doing the work, like I said, not just on the ground, but also, politically to make sure that we can repeal taking away some of these SNAP benefits for kids who rely on one meal a day, and so I think that they're doing it in all areas. And that's probably what I would say is my litmus test. And are you genuine? It sounds really simple, but I think that it has guided me pretty well. And that matters to me because of my faith. I think that so far it's been an okay litmus test.
Totally. And without going out on a tangent, it is hard to believe that anybody in a position of power to vote to feed hungry children could vote otherwise. The choices that you make on these kind of policy decisions really matter. Let me ask you, Andra, what's next for you? What's on your plate? You're always balancing acting and music and probably other gigs.
Just in the spirit of the conversation that we're having is just more community organizing. 2026 obviously is a big year. So more community engagement, more community organizing. But also I'm really excited we are working on new music. So Very excited about that. I have not decided whether it's going to be a series of EPs or a full album yet, but I'm finally getting in the studio with producers who I've been friends with for a while, and we've been talking about working together for a while, like No ID, Terrace Martin. So very excited about that. And then also we just finished filming the third season of Percy Jackson. So excited for people to see that because I'm actually a fan of the show even before I was actually cast to play a character in the show. So excited about that. There's a few other movie projects on the horizon that are similarly in the spirit of what we've been talking about in this interview. So, very, very excited about those projects.
Well, we will stay tuned. Andra, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your good work on behalf of a really good organization.
Thank you so much. Thank you for putting your time where your heart is. I think that's really beautiful.
As we close out today's episode, here's a few things we're watching for. HBO has released the trailer for auteur Richard Gadd's follow-up to Baby Reindeer. The series Half Man debuts April 23rd. It revolves around 30 years in the lives of two broken men. Don't miss my colleague Michael Schneider's coverage from Monday night's Paley Fest panel that reunited the OG Charlie's Angels cast. Kate Jackson, Jacqueline Smith, and Cheryl Ladd have still got it. The fans went crazy. Mike's story about bikini mishaps and other hijinks on the set of the Aaron Spelling series is a great read. And we'll also hear from Mike on tomorrow's episode of Daily Variety. He's written this week's cover story, and it's a doozy, so don't miss it. We love to hear from our listeners, so please send thoughts, gripes, and other feedback about Daily Variety to podcasts@variety.com. Before we go, congrats to Mary Beth Sprouse. She's been named Senior VP of Original Series for Hallmark Media. She comes to Hallmark from Sony Pictures Television, where she ran the Affirm television banner focused on faith, family, and inspirational content. She's also worked for Paulus Productions, Imagine Television, and Bad Robot. Thanks for listening. This episode was written and reported by me, Cynthia Littleton. Stick, Snicks, Hick, Picks. Please leave us a review at the podcast platform of your choice, and please tune in tomorrow for another episode of Daily Variety.
This episode of Daily Variety is presented by City National Bank. For over 70 years, City National has proudly served the entertainment industry with banking solutions tailored to the unique needs of this business. From complex negotiations to long-term financial planning, City National supports the people and businesses behind the scenes. Visit cnb.com/entertainment to learn more. Here for every stage of the journey. City National is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.